Good morning, you beautiful people. So, a lot of people were telling me that they enjoyed the podcast where I spoke about grizzly bears and black bears. And it got me thinking, I should talk more about what I'm interested in, and I'm really into Canadian wildlife. So in this podcast, we're going to focus on another animal that is quite common in British Columbia, Canada. And that animal is the cougar. Cougar. Cougars are basically big cats, and they're found all over North America. In this podcast, we're going to focus on 8 different facts about cougars. We're going to dissect the English around the fact, and then at the end I'll read the facts again. The aim of this podcast is to teach you content about cougars and also English. So, you should sit back, you should relax, you should listen up, you should take some notes if that's what you want to do, and get ready to learn some English about cougars. Are you ready? Here we go. So we're going to start off with 8 different facts about the cougars. And fact number 1. The cougar can sprint up to 70 kilometers per hour. Now that is pretty fast. It is important to note the word sprint. Sprint means a burst of speed. In the Olympics, the 100-meter sprint is one of the most widely watched events. Everyone wants to see how fast a person can sprint 100 meters. Now, the word sprint... Hold on a sec, I lost my spot. The 100-meter sprint is super fast. Like 8 or 9 seconds, and the race is over. Question. How long can a person sprint or run that fast for? Not a very long time. So when we say a cougar can sprint over 70 kilometers per hour, we mean that they can run 70 kilometers an hour, but only for a short amount of time. I doubt they can run a kilometer at that speed. So over a short distance, it is probably not possible to outrun a cougar. You know, it's quite common for animals to be able to sprint fast, but not as common for animals to be, say, endurance runners. It's likely that a human could run 100 kilometers faster than an animal, than most animals. Humans are like one of the only species that practice persistence hunting. Persistence hunting it's kind of like when you chase the animal until the animal gets exhausted and then you catch the animal. So given that a cougar can sprint that fast, it means that they are not persistence hunters. They're not the type of hunter that moves... They are the type of hunter that moves extremely fast and executes its goal of catching the animal in a very short amount of time. So, they can sprint up to 70 kilometers per hour, but I don't know how long they can keep up that speed for. Now, fact number 2 really surprised me. Number 2. Cougars are not afraid of water and have been known to swim between islands. So cougars can swim. That is what surprised me, because the cougar is a big cat and cats are generally afraid of water. So when I was looking up and when I was researching about cougars, like I said, this one surprised me. This one caught me off guard because I was thinking that, hey, cougars, they're not going to be swimmers. But turns out that a cougar is able to swim from island to island to island. So if you do encounter a cougar, be careful about jumping into the water because they might just go after you. Now, number 3. Cougars are widely distributed throughout BC and are the largest wild feline in the province, followed by lynx and bobcat. So in number 3, the word feline is important. Feline means member of the cat family. And the cougar is the largest wild feline in BC, followed by lynx and bobcat. Lynx and bobcat are 2 more animals in the cat family, and they must get their own podcast because they are super cool animals. So, when people are talking about cougars, they're talking about big cats. Cats are felines. A lot of people have cats as pets. Cats are hunters. The cougar is a hunter. Now, in the house, a cat might hunt a mouse, but in the wild, a cougar will hunt deer. So it's a very big and dangerous cat. Now, another thing about fact number 3, it says that the cougar is the most widely distributed animal throughout BC, or feline throughout BC. If something is widely distributed, that means it is everywhere. It's not just in one single area. So whenever you are out in BC, you should check your wildlife guide to see if cougars are known to be in this particular area, and then you can be proactive with cougar awareness. You know, I'm from Ireland, and in Ireland, say deer are widely distributed throughout the countryside. We have lots of deer. I know that in New Zealand, sheep are widely distributed around the country. What about you? What animals are widely distributed in your country? Now, moving on to number 4. Cougars are strict carnivores that primarily feed on deer, but will take down other young ungulates as well as small mammals, including domestic animals and livestock. So, in number 4, it says that cougars are strict carnivores. Strict. S-T-R-I-C-T. So the cougar is a strict carnivore. That means it only eats meat. You know, a bear is not a strict carnivore. A bear will eat berries and other animals. My friend Sarah is a strict vegan, which means she will only eat vegan food and she never breaks from it. I have another friend, John. And John is a vegetarian, but he's not a strict vegetarian. He says he is. But I know that if you put a burger in front of John, he will probably eat it. So strict just means like devout, and it just means that you're not going to break from it. So the cougar is a strict carnivore. Sarah is a strict vegan. That means she is never going to break her vegan diet. And that means that the cougar is not going to suddenly start eating berries and vegetables. The bear is not a strict carnivore. It has a varied diet. So by using the word strict here, it means 100% or absolute. Do you have any friends that are, say, strict vegans or strict vegetarians? I know that I could absolutely not be a strict vegan. It is just not for me. Now, another good word that came up in that fact was primarily. Primarily. And the cougar primarily feed on deer. If you primarily do something, you mainly do something. So, a cougar primarily feeds on deer. My name is Ronan, and I primarily feed on pizza and beer, for example. A bear primarily feeds on berries and other wild animals, or if the bear is on the coast, they primarily feed on salmon. So if a cougar is a carnivore, that means that they feed on deer and it mainly eats meat, mainly eats deer. It primarily feeds on deer. So that word primarily, let's think about a sentence or two that you can use with that word. What do you primarily eat? What is your diet primarily made up of? So my name is Ronan, and my diet is primarily made up of green vegetables, dairy, nuts, and meat. I don't eat a huge amount of fruit, so fruits are not primarily in my diet. I primarily eat green leafy vegetables and meat. What about you? My diet primarily consists of blah blah blah. What wild animals are in your country and what do they primarily eat? Tell me about your job. Well, I'm primarily based in Canada, however my job requires me to travel. In my work, we primarily focus on X, Y, or Z. Primarily. Great word. Now, another word that came up there were domestic animals and livestock. So can you think of some examples of domestic animals? Are dogs domestic animals? What about birds? What about elephants? Well, dogs and birds are domestic animals, but elephants are generally not domestic animals. Domestic is an adjective, and when we use it, when we're talking about animals, we're talking about animals that are in the house, animals that live alongside humans. So cougars eat domestic animals, which means if you live in BC, in Canada, you should keep your domestic animals inside at night. Otherwise, they might not be there in the morning. When you're out in the wild with your animal, keep the small animals close because, no joke, cougars have been known to attack hikers with small animals. So if you live in BC, and if you have a domesticated animal, keep it indoors when you're not about, depending on what area you're in, of course. I used to teach a lot of Syrians, and they had domesticated animals. They had a lot of birds. You know, in Ireland, birds are not really a common domestic animal. It's mainly dogs or cats, but in Syria, they loved having domesticated birds. So, what are domestic animals in your country? What animals live alongside humans in your country? And here is fact number 5. After killing a large animal, a cougar hides the carcass and eats it in the coming days. This is pretty cool. So the final word here is carcass, and a carcass is the dead body of an animal. So after killing a large animal, a cougar hides the carcass and eats it over a couple of days. The cougar does not eat the entire animal in one sitting. Rather, it will take the body away, take the carcass away, and eat it elsewhere. It will store the body safely somewhere it can find it again and then return to eat it later. I think I saw online that it will eat the carcass of a deer over like a 3-day period or so. So whenever I make food, I always make enough for, say, 2 or 3 days. I don't like to cook every single day. I like to eat my food over the course of 3 days. Similar to a cougar. Now, I store my leftover food in the fridge, but a cougar will store the food in the wild, somewhere secret and somewhere safe. What about you? Do you eat your food in one sitting? Or are you like a cougar and eat your food in more than one sitting? If a cougar eats a sheep, it will probably not be able to store it for very long because a sheep is going to be smaller, of course depending on the size. But if a cougar takes down, say, a deer or a caribou or a reindeer, it would probably eat it over a couple of days. So it'll eat it, go away, do its thing, come back, eat it again, and repeat. I found that one really interesting. Number 6. Cougars can climb with ease and leap over 6 meters or 20 feet. Leap and pounce are two similar words. Leap is a big jump, and pounce is a jump directed towards something in particular, usually a person or an animal. So when we're talking about the cougar, and we can say that it can leap over 6 meters, that means that it can jump over 6 meters. So a leap is a big jump. Humans can leap. Humans can jump. There's not much to it. But generally speaking, we're going to reserve this for animals or like hunter animals in a way. So if the cougar sees some prey, it knows that if it's within a 6 meter range of that animal, it can jump onto it. And that's one of the ways in which they hunt. So, fact number 7. The male cougar can be between 53 and 100 kilograms, while the female cougar can be between 24 and 64 kilograms. So number 7 is all about weight. I think we said the weight of a grizzly bear was over 600 or 700 kgs, kgs, kilogram. And when we talk about weight, we can use gram, kilogram, pound. In Ireland, we also use stone. So for example, what weight are you? I am 100 kilos. I am 100 kgs. I gained 5 kgs in the last month. I lost 5 kilograms in the last month. The heaviest I ever was 126 kilos. The heaviest I ever was 126 kilograms. That's no joke. That's a fact. Ronan was a fat bastard for a long time. And just so we know, 1 kilogram is 2.2 pounds. I once weighed 126 kilos. Then I went on a crazy health kick and lost a lot of weight. I think the lowest I got was about 90 kilograms. And here I am talking about my weight when I should be talking about the cougar. So the male cougar can be between 53 and 100 kilos, whilst the female cougar is usually between 24 or 64 kilograms. Do you know the weight of any animals in your own country? Are they bigger or smaller than the cougar? Is there a big or small difference between the male or the female animal? And then number 8. For the most part, the cougar has no natural enemies and sits atop the food chain. However, they occasionally compete with other predators such as bears and wolves for food. I chose to include this because I found it interesting because it talks about where the cougar is in the food chain and who it competes with. So the cougar has no predators attacking it, which means it's at the top of the food chain. A deer is not at the top of the food chain because lots of other animals eat deer, like bears and wolves. Who eats or hunts a bear? Well, nothing really. What hunts a cougar? What hunts a wolf? Nothing. So these animals are on top of the food chain. No other animal is going to wake up and think, I'm going to eat a bear today. I'm going to hunt a wolf today. That is because this is important because it means they don't need to be wary of other animals because they know that they are not going to be attacked. What I do find interesting, though, is that they might have to compete with each other for the food. So, for example, a cougar might take down a deer, and it might store the deer. But what's to stop a bear from coming along and taking the deer? What's to stop a pack of wolves from coming along and seeing the deer and start eating the deer? And then suddenly the cougar, after doing all the hard work of catching the deer, hiding the deer, well, it can't really do much because the other animals have got it. So that's one that I also thought was super interesting, how they compete. To compete. COMPETE. Compete is a verb, and it means to be in competition with. So the cougar is in competition with these other wild animals in BC, in British Columbia. So they were the 8 facts about the cougars. Now let's listen to them again in real time. Listen for the key words about these wild cougar facts. Number 1, cougars can sprint to over 70 kilometers per hour. Number 2, cougars are not afraid of water and have been known to swim between islands. Number 3, cougars are widely distributed throughout BC and are the largest wild felines in the province, followed by lynx and bobcat. Number 4, cougars are strict carnivores that usually hunt deer but will take down other young ungulates as well as small mammals, including domestic animals and livestock. Number 5, after killing a large animal, a cougar hides the carcass and eats it in the coming days. Number 6, cougars can leap over 6 meters or 20 feet. Number 7, the male cougar can be between 53 and 100 kgs, while the female cougar can be between 24 and 64 kgs. And number 8, for the most part, the cougar has no natural enemies and sits atop the food chain. However, they occasionally compete with other predators such as bears and wolves for food. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is the cougar. That was just some 8 different facts about the cougar. Now, we could sit here and talk for hours about the cougar. There's so much more. We could talk about what does it look like. We could talk about being safe around a cougar and what to do if you see a cougar. But I'll save all that for another podcast because we're running on like 25 minutes already. But what you need to know is that the cougar is a big cat. And the cougar is a predator. The cougar is a carnivore. It only eats meat. It's not a vegetarian. The cougar can swim. The cougar is able to jump 6 meters. The male cougar might be 100 kilograms, whilst a female cougar might be 64 kilograms. And for the most part, they've no natural enemies. The cougar will take down an animal, and if it's a big animal, it will eat it over the course of 3 or 4 days. It's not going to eat an entire deer in one sitting. Now, I hike a lot in British Columbia, and I've never seen a cougar, and I am happy that I've never seen a cougar. You do not want to meet a cougar in the wild. And here's the thing about cougars. If you see a cougar, it has already seen you. Think about that. Because it's a hunter. And it will watch you. It will stalk you. And when it's ready, it might attack. All right. So that is the end of this podcast. Canadian Wildlife number 2, where we were talking about cougars. The next podcast is going to be about bears. I know I spoke about bears a little bit before, but Canadian wildlife number 3 is going to be about the bear, and I just love bears. I can't tell you how much I love bears. Bears are one of the coolest animals, so important for the ecosystem and for the forest and for nature. Super important in maintaining forests, but we'll talk about that another day. What you can do now to really learn the English from this podcast is, of course, listen to it again, take some notes, but try to use some of the key words about an animal in your country. I just gave you 8 facts, talking about what they eat, the size, the weight, how far they can jump, if they can swim or not. You should try to write up a couple of different facts about an animal in your country. You should really try to take some notes about another animal, be it a cat, be it a wild feline, be it a snake or something. And can you, in English, talk about that animal? Don't talk about your day. Don't talk about your family or all these things like what you did last weekend. No, talk about something super cool. Talk about a wild animal from your country. All right, my name is Ronan. This is English on the Road. This is Canadian wildlife number 2. I have a website that is www.englishwithronan.com. You should check it out. Membership to the website is coming soon, and in that membership there's going to be so much, including transcripts, including keyword lists, and including weekly conversation classes. If you're interested, let me know. Go to my website. Sign up for my newsletter. The link is in the description. Right now, I'm going to go drink some coffee. What a surprise. I'm not going to go look for a cougar. But I hope that you have a great day. I hope you have a great night. If you enjoyed the podcast, please share it with a friend. If you did not enjoy the podcast, share it with someone you hate. That's my advice. Like, subscribe, all that jazz. My name is Ronan. I'm out of here. Thank you for listening. Take care, folks.